Jones. My show, Sell by Date, has taken me to some pretty incredible places, and now I get to turn it into a movie. This topic's not often talked about. The sex industry.
This is your vision that you have built over so long.
The first thing you see when you Google me is unnecessarily mean. Controversy.
What is the backlash? They don't even know what it is yet.
Sell by Date has become a war zone, and my characters have become frighteningly real.
Plot twist.
We are like legit in crisis.
What do I need, a bodyguard now?
If you're gonna shut this all down, then the conversation doesn't open up.
It means a lot to those of us that are still walking in that life.
The gatekeepers of culture, which are usually white cisgendered males, they're gonna walk in and say, oh my God, Sarah Jones, huge fan.
Hi, Benny.
Thanks for coming in. I'm a huge fan.
The real problem is Sarah doesn't know what she really believes.
Is sex work empowering? Is it exploitation?
You are getting into flavors and textures that make people uncomfortable.
I'm gonna keep my hands where I can see them myself.
I didn't realize I had my own truth to unpack.
I wish we lived in a reality where I could tell just one side of a story, but that's not the world we're in.
This was your destiny to do this show.
We still don't control our own narratives.
People have walked all over us and portrayed us in this light that continues to be negative.
We're underestimated, no matter how high we can climb.
A lot of people don't know the real history.
My hope is I get to make the movie that speaks to all of this.
You call it a one-person show, but really we do all the work.
Okay.
Welcome, my name is Maylen Calienes. I am the founder of Latino Filmmakers Network, and today we have the pleasure of talking to the filmmaker and the producers behind a hybrid documentary called Sell by Date, which premiered earlier this year at South by Southwest in Austin, Texas, and it's gonna be having a theatrical release soon. So it's very exciting. Also very exciting because I was part of the crew, and I wanna give a little shout out to some of our LFN team members that also participated in this. Gabriela Gonzalez, who was the co-producer of Sell by Date, Vince Sanchez, who did production design, and something that I really enjoyed about working with this group of people, I enjoyed the diversity that I saw in the crew and everyone who participated in front of the camera. And Latino Filmmakers Network is a champion of inclusion and diversity, and we like to give a voice to underrepresented communities and storytellers. So with that said, I want to introduce to you everybody, the core team members, the players that were involved in the making of this documentary. With us today, we have the producers, David Goldblum, Julie Parker Benello, and we have the one and only Sarah Jones, who's the writer, director, producer, and we're going to talk all about that. And you know, it all starts with a story, but I'm going to start really quickly with the producers because you need somebody to green light these films, right? So I'm going to start off with you, Julie, because you're actually an Academy Award winning producer. She won an Academy Award for a movie called American Factory, and she's also a champion of women storytellers and crew members and stuff like that. So Julie, can you tell us a little bit about your background and what attracted you to making and being involved on Sell by Date?
Sure. I'm one of the co-founders of a nonprofit called Chicken and Egg Pictures that supports women and non-binary documentary filmmakers. We've been going strong for 17 years. And so I've always had this vision for more equality and more representation in the film industry. Women and non-binary filmmakers in front of the camera, behind the camera, on the crew. And so David and Sarah came to SF Film. I live up in San Francisco, and there's a program called SF Film Invest, which is looking for really innovative, interesting narrative and documentary projects. And they came and pitched Sell by Date, and I was immediately taken by the two of them and the story and this question around empowerment, exploitation of sex workers. And of course, Sarah Jones is the inimitable Sarah Jones, was playing some of her characters in the Zoom. And I thought, oh my God, this woman is brilliant, and this film needs to be made. She, done Tony Award winning plays and Sell by Date as a play. And so this was the inspiration for the film. And I thought, I've got to be involved. And then David, we had a mutual producing friend in common. And I just heard what a, kick-ass mensch of a guy he was as a producer. And I thought, well, I'd love to be involved with this duo, because it does take, director, writer, producer, and of course, all the crew and everybody to make a project happen. So it's a very collaborative process.
Definitely very collaborative indeed. And now I'm going to David. David is a producer. You also were part of the writing of the story. I want you to talk to us a little bit about that, but you also come from the production space. So tell us a little bit about your background, David, and how you connected with Sarah, and how you and why it inspired you to work on this project in particular.
Yeah, I've been in the industry for 14 years, and I'd worked at Participant Media and different production companies focusing on social justice focused projects. And I knew Sarah personally from our New York days, over a decade ago, and we reconnected. I went as a fan to see her perform her one-person show in Los Angeles, and I was blown away. And I was blown away being in the audience, hearing other people being blown away. And that's really what hooked me, because I knew for me, as a cis white male, if I was as taken to the material, having no real direct connection to it, and then hearing other people around me who were just in awe, I knew there was something there. So Sarah and I met after that, and that became kind of this iteration of the film.
Awesome. Okay, and then finally, Sarah, yes, even outside of this, when I was posting about Sell by Date, people were telling me that they've seen your show and how awesome you are on that show. And I'm like, gosh, I wish I got the opportunity to see Sarah on stage do her thing. And I hope that I get to see that opportunity in the near future. First and foremost, writing is a very personal journey. And I know that this came from a personal place for you. And it was first a show, a theater show, but then you decided to make it into a movie. And the reason we call this a hybrid documentary is because this is part documentary and this is part narrative. And you get to play your characters. You get to bring light to a very dark subject with your characters, which brings a beautiful balance. And you do it through comedy, which many times, people don't understand. People sometimes don't see how comedy is such a great way to talk about social issues. So I want you to introduce yourself, Sarah. Tell us a little bit about you, but maybe, if maybe Bella and Rashid and Lorraine and Nereida happen to be around, if they could maybe say something, give a shout out about Sell by Date.
Thank you, Maylen. First of all, this is so perfect to get to revisit. It's like a reunion, because you were such an important part of our crew. We appreciate you. We appreciate how much you and LFN, for you to be focused on inclusion more broadly is so meaningful. And I think Julie and David were both too modest, so I'm going to let that here. I do these one-person shows. My characters come from my real family. I have a whole range of people, different ages, different genders, different backgrounds. So I'll let them.
Hi there, my name is Lorraine. I don't think I'm Latina in any way, pero mucho gusto en conocerlos. My daughter-in-law, it's a long story. Anyway, Julie and David both wear as many hats as Sarah. That's the funny part. It's a movie about the really the I don't want to say it's all about oppression, but it's about how do you liberate yourself, whatever your opinions about this topic. I think the people who were courageous enough to tell their stories in the movie, and then David and Julie talking about, why they were attracted to this project. Me, I'm based on a great aunt of Sarah's. I won't tell you how old I am, but let's just say you wouldn't think that this topic is relevant to somebody my age, but wait till you get older.
Anyway, I wanted Lorraine to get to say a little bit about how really this movie, we hope, we believe, David, co-wrote the story with me. Julie has been there from like day one. We've been building this, what we hope is a little movement around how we can have more honest conversations across cultures about something that, we all call it, whether it's the sex industry, the sex trade, whatever you want to call it, it encompasses so much, right? It's every family that goes and has wings at Hooters after a football game. That's a way of selling sex, right? There's, we even touch on in the movie, the Barbie doll was originally based on a German prostitute doll called the Lily doll. It's as American as apple pie. It's as much a part of our global culture as anything else. And for us to learn how to talk about it from a personal place, from a larger place, even if we don't know we're connected, like David's saying, whatever your gender, whatever your background, we believe Sell by Date has something for everyone. And, I'm in the movie. Hi, my name is Nereida. Sarah Jones has Dominican cousins. That's how I came to exist. I don't no puedo. But the point is that, this is a topic that touches so many lives. I mean, in DR, prostitution is legal since before I was born. So that's a whole conversation that we can have there. And I wanted to let Nereida chime in, and Bella.
Hi, my name is Bella. I feel super like I'm sort of white-splaining in a space where that's exactly the opposite of what we're supposed to be doing. But like, si se puede, totally. And like, I just want to say, as like, from coming from a certain generation, not that like, Sarah Jones and David and Julie are old, but they are like more chronologically advanced people in this space. But like, I believe this is a conversation that like everyone on every campus, like we are like having this conversation already about women, femmes, non-binary people, and sex and power and capitalism. And like the movie tries to touch on all of that. So we hope everyone will come, like PG-13, I would say, just so like people don't have any disorders going forward. Anyway. The point is that the film, I think our goal, Julie's a feminist film, like kind of film champion going way back. David as a writer and, kind of collaborative. He was like they're both, we call ourselves like a three-legged stool on this project, the three of us. And we know that we have a responsibility to make sure that we center the voices of women and femmes who have lived experience, whether they call themselves survivors, sex worker. It's not up to us to judge anyone. It's up to us to offer stories and make sure that, their voices are heard, not just my voice or even these other voices. You know what I mean? My name is Rashid. I'm saying, I'm going to be real quick. I'm the only dude Sarah Jones brought with her in the movie. But if you a cis male, saying I'm not coming in, I ain't going to check your phone, but I'm guessing you might have seen some porn in your lifetime. It's just a guess, just an educated guess.
So, with the movie, we're trying to like bring humor, but most of all, bring a focus to these voices that we don't hear all the time. And I do have my own personal journey in the film, which I invite people to see it so that you can watch it unfold. But I'll give you a clue. My mom's in the movie. It gets personal. And again, I think that this is a topic that if we're willing to admit it, we call it the oldest profession, but it's really the oldest conversation that nobody's having. And I think we're all ready to have it in a healthy way that, liberates us all. So that's the goal.
So, let me ask you all the questions. You could chime in, and I know that this question is asked a lot to you, Sarah, particularly, in the journey from the beginning to making this movie and then getting to know all these women and all these people that have gone through all of this. the question would be is, well, how do you feel about sex work? Is it empowering or is it exploitative? How do you all feel about that? What did you learn from it, from your own documentary, and this journey?
Right. I mean, again, part of the goal with the film is to offer people a range of voices and ideas so that they can unpack for themselves what's true. But I know one thing I learned is we have to listen to how women and femmes self-define. When I got to the honor and privilege of meeting women who are, in the industry and they're telling me their experiences, I'm the last person who's going to be like, you can't say that word or you're doing this wrong. That is exactly the problem, is that we're trying to tell women what their experience is instead of listening. And I listen to those who, exited the sex trade. I want us to hear everybody so that we can all understand. As a great expert who's one of our executive producers, Maylen Calienes, kind of shared this with me. She said, this is less about individual choice and more about systems, bigger systems that we all, it's 2022. In the last 2 years, we've been protesting in the streets how we've devalued the lives of people, especially certain people. Well, when it comes to women and women of color and this topic in particular, this is where we have to listen like never before and talk about the larger systems. But I'd love to hear David and Julie.
Well, I think what's great about the film is it doesn't offer, an opinion on one side or the other. It just gives a microphone to all of these subjects to explore their own story. And we found on the crew, like, people were changing their minds all the time. Like, there were lots of conversations happening behind the scenes where people were exploring and questioning and wondering. So I think that's the point of the film. It's not to plant a flag, it's to open a conversation.
Yeah, I would just echo that. We say we were a hovercraft in making the film, and I definitely feel like my mind was blown wide open, and I maybe came in with a certain viewpoint, and now I'm much more open. And ultimately, I just want women and trans people and people who are in the industry to be, to be protected and safe and respected. And so I feel like the film does a great job of just opening up this conversation. We hope it can really reach a mainstream audience. We're going to be in theaters in New York and LA come October 14th. And we're going to be, as of November 8th, we'll be streaming widely, Amazon Vudu. So I feel like this can really open up a very broad mainstream conversation. So I'm
Yeah,
excited.
as artists, we have to have an open mind when we make movies, right? So you kind of have to keep it open. I mean, for me, just being on set, it was an experience. I thought it was, because the movie shot in a couple different locations. We shot in LA, New York, Las Vegas. I think out of everything, the most interesting thing for me personally was going to the chicken ranch. There's always a stigma around those things, and I love hearing everybody's side because we're all so different individuals and we have different upbringings. And hearing these women talk, about their journeys and their upbringings and what got them from here to there, was so interesting to me. Was there somebody in particular of all the people that you interviewed, for you, Sarah, and David and Julie, that really stood out to you, and that that you feel like you need to advocate more for, or that you learned something about them that they taught us through this journey and documentary?
It's so funny. I'll just jump in and say, sometimes people will ask me this about my characters, right? I have this range of different people that I portray, and I'll have people say, like, well, is there a favorite or one that informs you more than the others, or that, and I'm not a parent myself, but I always say when it comes to the characters, I have no favorites. I truly do see how different they are and value them all for all of those differences. And I would say similarly, every voice, like, it was so miraculous how people came to us, how we were able to interview folks. There's sort of a story within the story of making the movie, and people just want to be heard. They want to be understood. They wanted their truths to be, shared. in a world where so many times the last voice you hear being, really prioritized. I mean, go see Pretty Woman. It's written by a nice white man who had like a fantasy story about, Julia Roberts in some thigh-high boots. And this is not that. This is reminding us that there's a much more just robust, diverse, beautiful group of human beings who are touched by this topic. And it includes many more of us than we may even realize. Our neighbors, our family, our culture is much more kind of connected to all of this, whether it's everybody knows what OnlyFans is or Pornhub or whatever. So I think it was not so much a favorite, but just really wanting to lift up the conversation with the voices of people with lived experience at the center.
David, Julie, do you want?
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree. I also would love to advocate for Sarah because she, has spent over a decade researching this topic, and watching her on this journey of making the movie has been pretty profound. And we were together every day in the editing bay with our amazing editor, Melissa McCoy, and watching how thorough and thoughtful Sarah was for each of the subjects, making sure that they really what they wanted to say was presented the right way, and really allowing for each subject to have their space, and even their frame in the frame. So watching that was really powerful for me.
It's pretty incredible to be both the writer, director, producer, and actor of your, this is Sarah's feature film debut, and really to hold all of those roles and to be our fearless, leader and collaborator. It was for me a joy to work on this film. It felt like a truly collaborative process, and that everybody was valued and heard and seen. And that's not always the case in making movies. And so I am just eternally grateful to have met these two wonderful people and everybody else involved with the film. Because it's a feat to play all those roles.
Yeah, I was going to talk about that because, there's going to be a lot of filmmakers tuning into this, Sarah. And I know that you come from theater. This was your first film, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So, and listen, something that this industry does, they usually tell people choose one thing. And I'm not a big believer on that because I do a million things too. A lot of people that I know do a million things too. And in this case, yes, like Julie said, you wrote, you directed, you produced, but, and let me tell you something, okay? I've done the same thing. I've written, I've directed, I've produced, and I've acted, but I've never played 5 characters at the same time. And I think that makes it more difficult, right? Challenging to do the other stuff behind the camera when these wonderful, brilliant characters that you have, are also a big focus. So tell us about this first-time experience for you, how you felt, and how you were able to, juggle all of that.
Well, you all are making me tired remembering this. But I will say to any, directors, like filmmakers listening, like this process taught me how much filmmaking is a community activity. I had David, I had Julie, I had our cinematographer, Josh. I had, we had such trustworthy people who care about Josh Weinstein. I should say his whole name. He's brilliant. And, like his vision, David helping me with like, hey, what about this? Julie with like, she would have her eyes on the monitor. It took a village to, make this piece happen with all of the impossible, it's only impossible if you don't have the support you need. And so I just can't emphasize enough that filmmaking, just like our activism, it's collective work. And lastly, I would say like we really did try to bring the spirit of the film, topic. Like really, it's ultimately about like empowering ourselves and each other, right? Like really giving space to like be as powerful as we can be in circumstances that might look disempowering or where we deserve maybe more respect than we're getting. And we tried to bring that energy to the set as well, like to give everybody as much respect and space as we know they deserve. And lastly, a sense of humor. Like I remember there were times where I was, I was like, I'm right, wait a minute. I think I'm Latina, like what's happening? Then I'm like, an abuela, I'm like, yo no sé quién soy, oh my God. Like that was, there was just this energy of like, just trust the movie itself has its own trajectory. And I would say that for all the filmmakers, who benefit from being part of this network, just keep doing what you need to do to tell the story. And if I thought somebody else would be willing to play all those characters and direct and produce and whatever, but I knew I was the only one who cared as much as I did about these stories in those ways. And then I had to surround myself with other people who cared and could help us push it up the hill.
Yes, and speaking of which, there were also a couple of names in this documentary that we do want to highlight. And we've seen all over the trade, and I apologize. We love dogs too and animals here. So if you hear my pug, like he's just hanging around here.
All the voices.
Little dart. Yes. We've seen all over the trades, and we know that this movie was executive produced by Meryl Streep, who's also a champion of women, right? Can you tell us a little bit about that, Sarah, your relationship with Meryl?
Meryl has been, since I was a little baby, budding performer, she's been a mentor and a support for me that is just it's almost unimaginable to have someone with her position and ability to amplify other people's voices. To have her say, hey, I'd like to do that for you and your voices has been huge. And I think, again, it comes back to the experience that David and Julie and I, and, starting with SF Films, we got to, we premiered at South by Southwest. We also got to do the San Francisco Film Festival. Like we have had this core of people letting us stand on their shoulders. And Meryl has been that. She has allowed me to sort of stand on her shoulders and, help me stand taller than I can in a society that, let's be honest, there's a reason we need an LFN, right? There's a reason we need specific chicken and egg, like making sure that women's voices and non-binary folks' voices get out there, because, cover David's ears, it is still very much a cis-het, white, male-run industry that centers the stories that they want to, put forth. And so for us to do this, I remember Meryl saying to me that without, women in power in Hollywood, her career would have died. So she really understands that this is about all of us helping lift. And if we have a bigger platform and we can lift others, that's kind of the spirit of my relationship with her for many years.
That's very beautiful. We also have Rosario Dawson and Bryan Cranston get very personal here. Do any of you want to speak on behalf of that?
David, please speak on behalf of Bryan and Rosario. Throw Alana in there too. David, I think we lost Dave.
With Bryan, I would just say tune in, watch the movie. He'll take you to a place that he's never taken you before, and I think it blew us all away filming it. And to see him get as vulnerable as he did I think it's going to help a lot of men.
Yeah,
Yeah. Rosario, I just thought was so kick-ass and so smart, and she calls it like it is. And what an amazing, woman entrepreneur, actor, political activist. And she's pretty incredible in the movie.
Agreed. Sorry, I jumped in because I was thinking like Bryan also, these are brilliant minds. Ilana Glazer was kind enough to have a cameo in the film. And these are all people I admire for their mix of art and activism. Bryan's a brilliant writer. His book is part of how I made sure to seek him out, not just as an actor and, director, producer himself, but same with all of these folks. So I think the overarching theme is don't be afraid to say yes to being a multi-hyphenate if you're the only one who's going to be able to tell the story that's burning within you in the way that it needs to be told,
And so finally, what is next for all of you? I know David and Sarah, you have Foment Productions, right? Tell us a little bit about that. Do you have anything you're working on? And Julie, maybe tell us something that you're working on next.
Well, I want to say just that Foment is, David and I have a shared sensibility. He has his own production company, Conscious Contact Productions, and we are hoping to make sure that we continue to tell the stories that we can't tell anywhere else because, when you have that in-house support, it kind of eliminates the problem of, we don't know if people will get that, we don't know if that's going to sell. It's like, we know it's important and it'll reach its audience if we trust it. So we're definitely running with sell by date for now and making sure people see it on, they can watch it, like Julie was saying, on Amazon, and that's starting November 8th. And before that, it'll be in select theaters starting October 14th. So everybody, please, you can actually follow me on Yes, I'm Sarah Jones on Instagram to know all the inside information. You'll know before I do, if somebody posts it before I do. But that's really our focus right now. And we do also have other projects that, speak to this same spirit of activism, social justice, but can we enjoy ourselves at the same time? And Julie, also from Secret Sauce Media, I want to hand it over to you.
Well, I mean, I would say, focus on getting Secret Sauce out, getting Sell by Date out, the Secret Sauce and Sell by Date, and also doing the impact and grassroots screenings. And, we're committed to that in addition to the theatrical and the streaming platform. I'm looking at EPing a series on women chess players from around the world. So that's sort of percolating now. But for me, it's always about, women representation and just getting kick-ass women's stories told. And, better yet, if they're helming the projects and in all the positions of power and leadership. Because I think the world would be a better place with more. I'm with Meryl, more women in power and leadership.
I agree.
And particularly, and women of color in particular.
And I was going to
women of color.
Yeah, and David is invited. David, you can come. You can come.
Yeah.
You're always invited, David.
I mean, speaking of women, spending some time with my wife, because I've been traveling the country for 3 years and empowering her. So that's
David, do you want to add anything? Are you working on anything?
Yeah, I'm working on a few personal projects. One is an adaptation of the New York Times bestseller, A Child Called It, which is something I've been working on for a really long time. And actually a director from the LFN has signed on. So we're looking to start filming next year. And it's been a long time coming.
Awesome. Okay. And to close this off, let's remind everybody again, when is Sell by Date premiering in theaters? October 14th, right?
So October 14th in LA, following week in New York City, and then on demand November 8th.
Okay, awesome. And any last words of wisdom? I know, Sarah, you've given us a slew of words of wisdom, but if anybody, Sarah, David, Julie, to close, if you have any other words of wisdom, for the community.
Thank you to you, Maylen, for being part of this project, for doing the work you do with Latino Filmmakers Network. I mean, we're all in this together, and so just grateful to you for bringing us on your show.
Yeah, no, thank you. And we're always here to support, and any other way that we could help to help spread the word. Also, make sure that you follow Sell by Date, right? At Sell by Date on Instagram. Is that it? Follow Sarah, follow David, Julie. I know that usually producers were very private, right, when it comes to our social medias, but follow them so you could continue the journey of watching the progress of this documentary, very enlightening hybrid documentary come to life. Support it. And we can't wait to, work together again or hear more from you all in the future. Thank you so much for being with us here today.
Thank you so much.
Having us.
Thank you.
Have a wonderful day, my friends.
You too.
Same to you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.